Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Too Heavy Wrestling Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about night one of the draft. We're going to be talking about specifically how Roman Reigns decided to opt out of it and how the Bloodline felt about that and a lot more. So make sure you stick around and hang out with us. Hey guys, and welcome back. We got Zach, we got Eddie, I'm Randy. Let's talk about wrestling. But before we get into that, Eddie, why don't you hit us with those tight little socials we got there?
Sure. Make sure to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. And make sure to tune in each and every week on Spotify, Apple Music, and Podbean.
Beans!
What the fuck?
I didn't like the breath.
Continue.
All right. So a lot of cool stuff to talk about. We got night one of the draft. As I said before, a little bit of Roman Reigns, a little bit of Bloodline. But before we get started, were there any specific people or things that surprised you about this first night of the draft?
Seemed very underwhelming. I thought there'd be, if it's a draft, previously we see a lot more people flip-flopped. Also, I don't know, thought that came to mind, I don't know if you guys like the format of the older drafts where they'd have established rosters and then it's a random pick.
Well, I was gonna comment on that, but I wanted to get Zach's thoughts first about the format.
Yeah, I mean, and when Triple H came out, he basically, I think, preemptively got the crowd kind of aware of the situation that the GMs are also fighting for the current roster that they already have, as well as the new picks. So, where I think they just really didn't think that many people were going to move anyway.
Yeah, so for me, what we lacked in the surprise picks of going back and forth, I thought the presentation and the feel of it really made up for that in terms of these GMs had their own war rooms and they had legends and consultants with them and they were coming out and in a formal way announcing these draft picks, which I know they've done similar things in the past, but I really enjoy the kayfabe version of the curtain being pulled back a little bit. You know what I mean?
Right.
I love that presentation of how this draft went. And I mean, a little bit to what you were talking about earlier, I also really loved the draft lottery.
Right.
Where they spun the giant wheel and whoever they pulled out, that's what it was, or other things like that. But I'm a fan of this draft format. As far as the picks go, there weren't too many crazy surprises or roster switches. We had some NXT call-ups that were pretty cool. But nothing really blew my mind.
No. I mean, what we had seen from what it appeared, I guess the biggest turn that I didn't see coming was that the fact that Braun Breaker switched shows.
Yeah, Braun Breaker to Raw was interesting. And
then Baron Corbin got called up to SmackDown. Dang, that feels weird saying that.
Yeah, well, I really liked that tag team for the few times that I saw them, because obviously I don't watch NXT as much, but they were worth watching, and I'm just not really sure what Baron Corbin's gonna do. I know what Braun Breaker's gonna do, but I don't know what Baron Corbin's gonna do.
I mean, just fill up a roster spot.
I mean, most likely, but I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing him against Logan Paul, to be honest.
Do you think he'll get a mid-card title run, or do you think just that's a good feud to have Logan do in the interim?
I mean, maybe he versus Cody Rhodes.
That would be wild. Just Baron Corbin straight to the main event.
Baron Corbin's on that cusp of people who could be released, in my opinion, where they're just running out of ideas.
For sure.
Which there were a lot of people who were released recently where I don't know if it was necessarily odd. I thought Cameron Grimes was odd. I thought releasing him was crazy.
Dude, you say that, but I forgot he was there until I heard he was released.
They didn't do anything with him.
That's not
his fault.
That's not his. I'm not saying him getting released even was his fault, but your point is my point. They weren't using him for anything, so I forgot he was there, and then he got released, and I was like, okay, that didn't change anything for me.
And then just the backstory behind it. But Baron Corbin, it's okay, he's done plenty on the main roster. He's done a lot of things a lot of people wish they could do. He gets brought back down because it was a stale product. They didn't really make him. Did they elevate him in any way?
I mean,
He
won
lost a NXT championship match, but that's about it.
Well, he won an NXT tag title.
Yeah, but he doesn't
Well,
have
right.
that partner anymore.
So it's an interesting thing because you could have you could blur the lines of kayfabe and reality, and you could literally have Baron Corbin run a gimmick where it's, hey, I'm not really sure what I'm gonna do without Braun. I'm pretty lost right now, and you can have a whole sad early Sami Zayn type like story around, like, think Sami Zayn post everyone, really, like kind of his lead up to WrestleMania this year, where he's kind of alone, doesn't really have too much going on, and he's trying to find his like WrestleMania moment. You could have Baron Corbin run some sort of program like that, except it's just his place on the roster. Like, you could even run a backstage segment where he goes up to Nick Aldis and he's like, I gotta be honest, I'm not even sure why you drafted me. Like, you could go through that whole thing and at least get him to a mid-card title run or something over a 6 to 8 month period. If you want to make him feel important.
I don't want to make him feel important. That's one of those products where I feel like it's stale. We've gotten plenty of it. Like, what more?
I don't know. I mean, Zach, what do you think?
I honestly, up until he became, like, Good Luck Corbin, whatever.
Good luck, Corbin.
Bad luck Corbin. Or
I mean,
good
whatever.
Luck Corbin.
Happy
I don't
Corbin.
like.
Happy Corbin.
Happy Corbin.
That's, I mean, his failed JBL
bum
run
Corbin,
too.
like whatever. Like,
Yeah.
I seen what they were trying to do, but like I have always liked Lone Wolf Corbin. I never really wasn't a fan of him. So like, I honestly can see him come back up to the main roster and do something. Do I want him to take a spot from somebody who has been pushing for something? No. But I wouldn't mind seeing what he can do as a feud with top champions.
It would be weird for me to want to see someone in a feud, but specifically not want them to win.
Yeah, I mean, I like seeing the work because I know Corbin is good at promo work and, you know, working with people as a bad guy. So I mean,
he's a good heel.
He can do that stuff, but whether it's always against, or whether it's like always in a story where it's against someone else that is going for a title, or like he's always trying to steal opportunities from other people, like maybe that's something. I don't know. It's gonna be something to see. Like I was surprised that he even got drafted at this point.
I was too. I didn't look at the picture too closely. Was he on the original draft pool picture?
No, he was not on that picture.
Yeah, So I mean, I guess that is technically an NXT call up then.
The only other call up, which I'm more than certain, at least you definitely don't know who she is. You may know who she is. Her name's Kiana James.
Yeah, I had no idea who that was.
Her gimmick is she's rich.
I liked her gimmick. They showed a video package of her, and I was like, oh, she's a businesswoman. That's cool. I was okay with it.
Just carries around a really.
It was
big
like
purse.
it was like if early 2000s Stephanie McMahon could actually wrestle. That's the vibe I got.
She's a good wrestler, but I don't know how far that can go. Chat, clip this.
Well, that's the point, right? The point of NXT is you build a character, you run its course, you go through NXT. I personally, for a long time, even back in Black and Gold, have felt like whatever gimmick you had in NXT was specific to that level of professional wrestling and wouldn't work on the main roster.
And so much of that is true when you kind of look at everything, but it's like there's certain gimmicks where the people who are more about wrestling are going to make it more. Like Braun Breaker really, his gimmick is his family. If you want to say that.
His gimmick is he's a Steiner and he looks and acts like a Steiner and sounds like one, and that's going to carry him very far because if you have the athletic ability of the Steiners of the early 2000s and the 90s and you have the not shitty personality behind it, he's probably going to go really far.
Right.
So,
but to be, you know, out of that pool of women who are in NXT right now, to be not just one of them, but the first one to get called up, that means they have something ready for her.
They do have something. I just
So,
don't know.
again, a lot of this is going to be a wait and see type thing, especially for the call-ups. I mean, Braun, you can kind of tell where he's going to go. He's going to demolish jobbers, whatever he's going to do.
For how long?
I know. I
Sure.
mean, that's the only
I
thing.
mean,
I
he's
mean, he
gonna-
beat Cedric
He'll
on.
probably win a title by the end of the year.
Cedric got squashed. It might as well have been someone else. That
I know.
honestly didn't even matter to me.
I think he will win a title by the end of
Yeah.
the year. Like, I think there's no question about that. Cedric getting demolished, I mean, that's another person who's kind of surprising he's on the roster still. No
Probably
offense
why
to
he
his
went
athletic
to.
ability.
It's probably why he went to Raw in general. Because I mean, like him versus Sammy could end up being a really good match. Even him versus Damien could be a really good match if
Right.
Damien keeps the belt that long. I mean, there's a lot of stories that can come out of this. For what we got, like I said, it was a lot of just confirming that people are staying where they're at, and whether that makes for entertaining television, that's kind of a given. It does not, but I mean, I guess good for them for securing the people that they want to keep.
Right.
Well, and I wanted to make sure we highlighted and give a special shout out to Bianca Belair for being the first pick.
Good for her.
I
She
thought
deserved
that was very cool for both her and for WWE to show, because you wanna believe that WWE is gonna start valuing women and women's wrestling more, and having Bianca, it's cool because when you have Bianca be the first round pick like that, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, they just did that to do it. But there is enough storyline and built up equity with her leading up to this draft that like no one questioned it. People were like, okay, yeah, Bianca Belair, that's a great first pick.
The
You know what I
part
mean?
that gets me, especially because I'm very happy with the 2 first-round picks, that happened, Carmelo Hayes and Bianca, but I do not like the draft pool idea. I don't like them announcing who's eligible to draft on both days. Like we said with the draft lottery, it was everybody and
Yeah.
anybody.
I agree, actually. I don't like the draft pool idea.
No, don't tell me who's eligible to be drafted on that night so that I can be surprised if they might get their name announced.
Yeah.
Also, I just want to point something out. The Bloodline, with the way they've been pushed, were drafted in the 3rd round.
Yeah, they weren't even first pick in the 3rd round. They
Ricochet
were-
was drafted before the Bloodline.
Yeah,
I'm going to say that one more time. Ricochet was drafted before the Bloodline.
I noticed that too.
I was very mad with LA Knight's placement being
And-
third.
I was going to say AJ Styles was in the 4th round.
And he's the number 1 contender.
AJ Styles was in the 4th round.
Dude, I mean that's the thing is like when you look at this draft order, when you have round 1 being Bianca, Carmelo, and I mean
Jay and Seth.
Jay and Seth. Bianca and Carmelo lead more credence to this, but because Jay and Seth have been there for a while, but like you look at round 2 being Braun Breaker, you look at round 3 being LA Knight, like this was a very future heavy instead of like the now, this was like the future. Like yes, these people are still the now, but they're very fresh the now. Like Bianca 5 years ago was in NXT, I believe. Like she's very much the now. Jey Uso is just now becoming a singles wrestler over the last year. You know what I mean? Like it's
But I mean, even for him being the number 1 contender on his respective show, he was the first round pick.
yeah,
I also just looked at the pool for Raw, and it is far, far, far bigger.
oh yeah. Well, it's got that extra hour,
Yeah,
so
it was a given, but again, it just would have made so much more sense and just been more surprise given if we just didn't have a pool. If it was just everybody and anybody can be drafted at any moment.
yeah. I don't know even why they do that.
And also, I liked the whole thing, like with the whole John Cena swerve we got when drafts were still a thing, where he bounced from one show by one.
Yeah, he got
By the
drafted
beginning of the
twice in
show?
one night.
But he can't because, or like, you can't have like a Braun get drafted again because he's not a part of the Raw draft pool.
I also liked the possibility of splitting tag teams up in that little, and well, just the way they used to do drafts, how you could split up a tag team. And no offense, because
could-
we have a really solid division right now.
You could split up tag teams. You could also flip champions, but champions were locked in this year, which I don't necessarily disagree with because of the belt designs and
Right.
But
Yeah.
like at the end of the day, like
It was a very safe draft.
yeah,
They felt like, I guess they felt like they had to continue it because they've stopped it and started it so many times.
it feels like this year is a safe draft, so that next year's draft is going to be bonkers.
I hope that's the
Like
case.
I feel like we're getting not no pun intended, but I feel like we're getting a rough draft of a draft, so that next year when they do this, because you got to figure between now and the next draft, we're gonna get the entire year's worth of pay-per-views. More specifically, in my head, I'm highlighting the Survivor Series of it, right?
Right.
And you're gonna have a lot of story around brand supremacy around that. I'm assuming this year we should, given the GMs and how they've already been feuding a little bit. Friendly since Mania, but like, there's still that healthy competition. I feel like Survivor Series this year is going to be very brand supremacy heavy, which I enjoy. I think that's what it should be. I think it's a very natural direction for that pay-per-view. Coming out of that, going into Rumble and Mania season, you could loosely have the skeleton of that and then make next year's draft the highlight of the year.
Right.
And like
The
how
other
crazy
thing
that is.
too, just to put a note out there, is that for previous drafts, did they have a locking period ever like they do this year, where after Friday and Monday, they have basically until the Monday following Backlash to have their rosters locked in?
Like make trades and stuff?
Yeah.
No, that's new. I don't remember that ever being a thing. The only thing that had ever been kind of done after a draft one year was that night where Shane McMahon contradicted himself and was like, this is going to be hard drawn. Like, no one's going to jump. And then later that night, like 3 SmackDown people showed up.
Yeah.
Like that year was really dumb. But like, no, I don't remember them ever doing something like that. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, so that's where I think maybe these announced picks of staying on their shows could get a little bit crazier with the one SmackDown show after the draft and then Backlash itself. Like, we might see some turmoil there.
Yeah, because Backlash is this upcoming weekend, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So there's only going to be the Raw draft episode, and then the SmackDown after that, and then it's Backlash.
Yep.
So they have until Backlash or until the Raw after Backlash?
It said the 5th was the last day of the before lock-in, so it's the day before Raw.
Yeah, so they have basically through Backlash to do
Yeah.
anything. So that SmackDown's probably going to be crazy. Is that SmackDown recorded?
I don't. It's in London.
If it's overseas, it's going to be recorded.
But does it
it's
get recorded
overs-
that
they're-
day?
It could be live because they're gonna be there. They're not recording it as if they're here.
That's what
going
I'm
there.
saying. Like, I wonder if they're going to
For like
record
the
it
Saudi
earlier.
shows.
Oh,
Yeah, I wonder if they're going to record it like it'll be recorded, but it'll only be recorded like 5 hours prior and then air at a normal time.
Well, right, because of the time difference.
Yeah.
So it's probably a recorded episode, but it'll be there.
Yeah, I could see that.
So is Cody SmackDown?
Yes.
Is that what
Yes.
we're going with?
Cody
Yes.
is locked on SmackDown now.
Champions were locked, so
Yeah.
they whatever show that they were respectively on, they are
Minus
staying
the
on.
women's tag titles.
Correct.
I just
Which
don't.
is a shareable title anyway.
I just really don't want to see this intermingling crap anymore. Like, I thought there was too much bloodline on Raw times 2. Like, I don't need all that. Just like keep them on their respective shows. I think
Yeah.
it makes things a lot more interesting come Survivor Series time if we don't see any interaction after WrestleMania. No interaction between any of the brands.
Hard
Minus-
stop for Survivor Series, and then like basically January till Mania. I'm okay with. That's
Well, for me, it's you want to do the hard stop, right? But I would say I really enjoyed the invasion angles.
That's fine.
So I think the year that Becky became the man and all that stuff, like I like those angles where it's like, okay, Survivor Series is what's the pay-per-view typically before Survivor Series? I don't remember.
Oh, well, it was Hell in a Cell, but
So whatever that pay-per-view is going to be after that pay-per-view, those 4 to 6 weeks leading up to Survivor Series, if you want to do invasion angles back and forth and stuff, I really like those. And those mean more the more you keep the brand split.
Right. It's like when we have an invasion angle like with Becky, or like 2005, and this was just my favorite time period in wrestling, or the most I remember, just that 2005 era where you'd see like Randy Orton, Rey Mysterio, JBL, Batista, all those guys try to invade Raw, and then Kane, Big Show, Carlito, Shawn Michaels, Chris Masters try to invade SmackDown. Like it just made for me to like, oh, I can't wait for the next show to see the build up, and I want more of
Well,
that.
that's the thing too. You would not hear about the other show on the other show,
right?
Or you could even not swing hard the other way, but like talk crap on them. Like you could literally have, especially when you have someone like Pat McAfee who could start being like those goofs on the Friday show. Like, you know what I mean? Like you could build it that way.
Well, they already started that kind of dynamic between Adam Pearce and I can't even think of it, Nick Aldis.
Yeah.
They already started that dynamic kind of between them as like kind of passive aggressive brand supremacy.
Exactly.
Which how it's always should have been. I mean, we just now got GMs back, but that's how it's always should have been from the get-go.
Yeah.
If we can get Theodore Long and Eric Bischoff in a GM versus GM match, we could get Adam Pearce versus Nick Aldis in a GM versus GM.
Is Adam Pearce medically cleared?
He is medically cleared. He just retired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, I'd watch that match though. 2 former NWA World's Heavyweight Champions. I'd watch that.
With a world title holder right now who is also an NWA World Heavyweight Champion.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's a good look. I think that Monday night's draft is going to be better.
Yes,
I feel like we're going to get more surprises. We'll get some, like, for instance, some of those people that were from SmackDown that got drafted to Raw, they'll probably make some appearances. Please welcome Raw's latest selection from Friday night, whomever. Like, we could get that done.
We're going to see call-ups from NXT, but I really just don't know who else they could call up.
They could call up
Ilya.
Beach Flair.
Who?
We forgot to set him up.
Oh, Ilya. What the fuck am I thinking? Yeah, they're going to call up Ilya.
No, it's Beach Flair. We forgot to set him up.
Flair isn't getting fucking called up.
He could.
Also, if I saw the crap that you guys put in the comments, no, Beach Flair's not going to fight James Ellsworth in a street fight. Why would he do that? No one wants to see that.
No one wants. No, never mind. I'm not going to say that.
No, say it. Just do it.
I was going to say no one wants to see Ilya Dragunov get called up, but I don't think that's true.
That is literally.
I think a lot of people want to see him get called up. I just don't think people want to see what happens when he gets called up.
You think he's going to flop?
Did you see what happened on Raw?
When he won a match? Yeah.
No.
What? Which part?
The crumbling of Imperium?
Oh, yeah. You think he's just going to slide in?
He's taking Vinci's spot.
That's the dumbest fucking thing ever.
Oh, man. Wouldn't that prove my point?
That's the dumbest fucking thing. Like, Triple H, you know better. Don't put him in a stupid-ass faction.
If Ilya Dragunov takes Giovanni Vinci's spot in Imperium and he gets relegated to that tag team while Gunther still leads it, I will feel so vindicated.
I won't. Why? Well, I don't even.
I mean, what if it just turns into a?
It could be a power struggle.
Respect into.
That's so stupid.
Ilya's like, yeah, no, this isn't how it's supposed to be. I beat you before.
Yeah, the power struggle over the leadership of Imperium.
He literally called himself the
Which
Tsar.
is quite literally just a divorce dispute over what's his nuts. Who's the guy? Not Giovanni Vinci, but Ludwig Kaiser. That's all that would be because it's just the three of them. So if the two of them are struggling over power, really they're just arguing over who gets to tell Ludwig Kaiser what to do.
Here's the take. Ilya Dragunov does not need a fucking faction to do anything. If you think that, one, he's beaten Gunther, let's start there. He's one of the only people to beat Gunther, which if you want to go for those power-hungry BS and then be like, oh, I got the guy that beat me on my team.
Dude, all I'm saying is if Ilya Dragunov becomes the third member of Imperium
the dumbest
and
fucking thing
is
ever.
in that tag team, I will feel so vindicated. Even if he wins tag team gold, I will be like, that is nowhere near what anyone thought he was going to do, and I feel like I'm right.
I just don't want, like, that's the whole Pete Dunne dynamic, too. It's like...
Yeah.
Pete Dunne, Ilya Dragunov. I'm going to just lay that out there.
I understand that's your feelings.
That's just facts, in my opinion.
Did you just say that's just fact in my opinion?
I said that's facts in my opinion.
All right.
But in the case of Pete Dunne, it's just like if he didn't get delegated to being Butch, and he just got straight called up at his peak,
Don't.
like Ilya is now, would there be a difference?
I never thought Pete Dunne
No.
would get called up and win a title. I will say
Pete
that.
Dunne,
Oh, I did.
Ilya Dragunov.
Not
They are
even
interchangeable
fucking
in my head.
close. You're
In my
so
head-
weird.
In my head, they are they are interchangeable. They're the same person.
Because you don't watch NXT.
That's true. That's true. Look, disclaimer, it's an uneducated opinion. I'll give you that.
Well, give me this then. First round pick of SmackDown. Of SmackDown. Carmelo Hayes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where are we thinking he actually goes then? Because he's the same stature as...
It's not about stature. It's about
It's about charisma.
charisma.
I understand.
It's
Carmelo
about,
Hayes will win a world title. Maybe not by the end of this year, but he will. Carmelo Hayes will settle into the main event probably after a good mid-card
Okay,
run.
because I'm on Eddie's side with Ilya.
Yeah.
But
I
I'm
think-
wondering what is your thing with Ilya that Carmelo has more of?
It's because he's a guy from overseas. That's my thing. That's what I think it is.
Probably. Because the thing is, I don't have an answer for you. I don't know what it is that I see. I don't know why I look at You know what it is? Maybe it's the Vince McMahon in me. Maybe it's the big meaty men need to succeed.
Oh, shut the
Again, Carmelo is not.
Carmelo
He's
is
big enough.
I think
He's beefy as a small dude.
Carmelo is bigger than Sean was.
I think Ilya, in my opinion, I think Ilya, just based off the matches I have seen, you can put a program with Carmelo Hayes with the two of them, actually. But, like, I think Ilya is
They already
more
have
likely to get a world title. I know they have. I know he's more likely to get a world title than Carmelo. And that's how I feel. Because I think I think he's the future of that promotion.
I don't know enough to disagree with you from a professional.
I do think Carmelo's also part of that future.
Yeah, like I don't know enough about Ilya Dragunov specifically to disagree with you, but I do know enough about WWE to know that unless the pivot that they're trying to make is huge, that's just not going to happen.
Here's another theory that I have. It's like we got Shawn Michaels running NXT. We got his best friend running the main promotion.
Oh yeah.
If he sees something, he's going to feed that information right over. He saw something in Carmelo. Carmelo is going to be a star. He saw something in Braun. Going to be a star. I think it's going to correlate really well. Anyone who Shawn Michaels thinks is a star is going to be a star when they get to the main roster.
Oh yeah, they do trust each other, and honestly, I do trust them. And that's again, that's why I could be wrong if they really do want to pivot towards professional wrestling being the reason why you succeed. But if that's not, if it's still how you tell a story, how you look, the way you are in the mic, like when you look at the Venn diagram of all the things.
I think that's a pure transition
Yeah.
happening right now.
Yeah, like I don't know. I could be wrong, but I don't see a bright future for Ilya Dragunov.
Let me also put it like this. I think now the NXT title and the fact that people are starting to hold the NXT title is going to mean a lot more now than it did, I'd say, over the past, 10 years previous to, I'd say the 2012 to, 2022. When you held the NXT title, that didn't mean you were bound for stardom when you got called to the main roster.
Yeah, I mean,
Even
you could
during
ask
peak NXT Gold, or Black and Gold.
Yes.
dude. I mean,
I
you
don't
could
think
you
so.
could ask Samoa Joe,
You can ask
Bobby
Bobby Roode.
You could ask
Shinsuke
Karrion
Nakamura.
Cross.
You can ask Keith Lee. You can ask
Yeah.
all of these people. None of those guys were going to be stars when they got caught up. Johnny Gargano is still another
Well,
instance of that.
that's the branch that I was going to come off of, is that you're like this moment now, especially with Trick winning the championship recently.
Trick, I don't know about him though.
Well, hear me out. But everybody who has been champion recently, it went from Braun to Ilya to Carmelo, Carmelo to Ilya to now Trick. It's it actually feels like there's now a stepping ladder. It didn't feel like they had anything to grasp onto. Braun was the start of that climb again, and I feel like we're just it's nice feeling like the people who they are making champion actually has something to go off of.
I'm just in the mindset of one, no offense to Trick Williams, he's very charismatic. He needs to get the wrestling piece down a little bit more, but he's a homebred talent, so I do understand that. When you had people who were already very well done, Braun just got thrown into the situation, was $1 million immediately.
Yeah.
That is just genes. You can't teach the fact that he was as over as he was when he got
You
there.
can't teach hitting the ropes and making the entire ring move.
And Carmelo, he came in like 3 years into the business and did something immediately. Great time or great moves. Ilya was everywhere around the world by the time he got to WWE. And when he was in NXT UK, when no one knew about NXT UK, had matches with Finn Balor. That's big as is when Finn Balor's like, there's only one guy I want to work with. I also said this last week. If you ask one of the stars in the other promotion and being like, oh, who do you want to fight? And they're like, hey, I want to fight Ilya Dragunov.
That's Kenny Omega.
That is Kenny Omega.
Yeah.
When you have the quite like quote unquote one of the greatest stars in the world say, I want to fight that guy before he even mentions Gunther or like even mentions Seth Rollins.
Well, it's a dude that one was already around the world, but two was still only in NXT, not even getting up to the main roster yet. So,
does Ilya Dragunov get called up on Monday?
He just lost the title, so I'd say yes.
Supposedly, just like Braun had when he had his tag team title loss, where he had a send off. Supposedly, Ilya also had the same type of send off whenever he lost.
Well, are there any other surprise picks? Are there any other picks we were really surprised about looking at this list right now?
No, I don't think so.
I really didn't think we were gonna see the Alpha Academy get drafted together. Only, I think timing kind of played into that.
Yeah.
Because I think the character of Gable now turning into this like degrading coach or just becoming that cocky heel is ever changing. So hopefully, I mean, the fact they all got drafted together just for Gable to shit on them.
Well, the thing is, it really depends on where the Creed brothers get drafted. If the Creed brothers get drafted to Raw,
really hope they don't get drafted to a separate show because that really diminishes everything that we hoped for.
Yeah, exactly. Recently. If the Creed brothers get drafted to Raw, then we're going to get the storyline of Chad Gable seceding from Alpha Academy, basically disbanding it because without him it doesn't exist. And either having the Creed brothers and that's the Alpha Academy or getting a new name with those three in a group.
I want to ask a question then. So based off the conversation we just had, especially around stature, charisma, everything like that, I've always been a Chad Gable guy. I've always liked him ever since he was in with Jason Jordan.
American
Alpha.
Yeah.
Just like I always seen basically Kurt Angle 2.0 in him. I know he's technically smaller than Kurt, but even Kurt himself said that now more than ever recently he is witnessing a rebirth of Kurt Angle.
Yeah.
So just like the other guys that we say we don't see a world champion out of, based on this new heel character, could we see a Chad Gable world heavyweight champion?
I think it'd have to be a Daniel Bryan situation or a Kofi Kingston situation to where it gets to that point. To where it's like they're just making him as over as the fans are making him as over as humanly possible.
If the fans really clamor and get behind a heel Chad Gable and they want to see this faction, I think that we will see Chad Gable with the mid-card title and the Creed brothers with the tag titles. And they will do that for a good 3 to 4 months before something happens. I think that one day Chad Gable will be world champion, but I also think there are so many people ahead of him.
Yes, I agree.
I don't know. Honestly, that could get so far that there will never be a good time to pull the trigger, so they'll just do it to do it.
I also don't.
Or you give Chad Gable the Money in the Bank.
I mean, you could do that. Like, Chad Gable is a fantastic wrestler. Like, he has a Olympic background. Like he's in a very good spot. But like Chad Gable, also, I agree. There's always going to be, and it doesn't help that there is a development system flowing with new talent where they can be like, this guy needs a world title. That Braun Breaker's in front of him.
Yeah.
I think the three guys that we talked about, Braun Breaker, Carmelo Hayes, Ilya, I think they're in front of him to win a world title.
Dude, there are people we're still waiting on that are also ahead of him. Sami Zayn is ahead of him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, Shinsuke, to a lesser degree, should be in front of him, whether he is or isn't, is part of that conversation. But, like...
Well, and that's where I was saying maybe it is a preemptive, conversation, because, I mean, he still hasn't even won a mid-card title yet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But he hasn't... I mean, he's just now getting into that opportunity, so that's where I'm like, if this Sami Zayn feud continues, which the fact that they got drafted to Raw, I mean, and Sammy's staying on Raw because of the champion lock, like, it's very obvious or possibly obvious that they'll continue that feud. So, I mean, if we're not looking at a very near future Chad Gable world title win, do we see a few mid-card title runs going?
Definitely. I definitely see some mid-card title runs for Chad Gable.
I think he has to beat Sami Zayn to get that.
And I think he will. I
think he'll.
I don't necessarily think it'll be now. I think Sammy will go through 3 or 4 challengers and then like SummerSlam. I could see Chad getting that win back at SummerSlam.
I don't want to go all the way back to like 2005, 2006 hot potato championship.
Yeah.
Handling, but like, do we want to see more titles change hands at this point? Not all these super long title runs.
I think you need to have the super long title runs, but we just had so many. Over the last 5 years, we've broken a tag team record, a women's title record minus the big one, and we've top 5'd the WWE Championship, Intercontinental Championship. Like, I think we are nearing the end of record-breaking title runs, and I think we're about to go back to 2 or 3 champs a year per title.
Yeah, well, and that's
Plus
the
or
thing. It's like,
minus.
I know that John Cena, Randy Orton, Triple H, they had to go through that 2004 through that like 2010 era where it was just like they were passing the title to each other almost weekly. But like, I just feel like because we had those such long title reigns out of each belt, and knowing that that next person that has it isn't going to then hold it that much longer to then beat that person, it's like, does it become believable anymore to even have, even a year-long reign?
Well, and the Money in the Bank kind of lends credence to that, because a lot of those shorter title runs weren't even necessarily because of hot potatoes. It was because someone would win a belt and then get cashed in on that same night or something. I mean, we had all 3 members of the Shield hold the title in the same night because of that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it's you can have. Look, if I was ever a professional wrestler and I finally got the belt, like if I finally got the WWE title, even if I only held it for 3 months, those 3 months are the highlight of my life. I was WWE champion for 3 months.
I also think that the WWE's done a great instance of trying to find ways of jeopardizing a world title reign of that caliber, of getting that far along the line. Like, Roman went through 2 WrestleManias holding that title. He went through 3.
Gained it at 1 and then held it for 2.
Well, he gained
he gained it. He beat Bryan and Edge, then he beat Cody, and then he lost it to Cody.
Well, I mean, even before that, he won the Universal title off of Bray Wyatt, but he didn't win it at a WrestleMania.
Right. So, he did a lot with that. I don't think we will get a title reign to that extent for a very, very long time. I hope not in my generation, I hate to say. But I don't need to see title reigns like that anymore.
What, like the super long ones anymore?
We don't. If you're not going to go for it all.
The only reason I wouldn't want to see that long of a world title run anymore is if the other world title gets absorbed again. I feel like there are a lot of people during the like 2 years that Roman held both titles, if it was 2 years plus or minus a couple months. I feel like there were a lot of people that should have gotten world title runs that didn't because Roman was like holding both. So when they introduced this World Heavyweight Championship, that's what made me happy. And yes, you're inaugurating a title, so you want the title run to be pretty long, but I thought Seth was going to lose it by like SummerSlam, and then I thought he was going to lose it at Rumble. Like, like I didn't even need his inaugural title run to go basically a year, but it did. Almost. It would have been a year next month. So like I don't necessarily need hot potato titles. I don't need every 2 months.
Right.
But like I don't mind seeing one at Mania, lost at Survivor Series, or one at Backlash and lost at Hell in a Cell, or one on Monday Night Raw and lost it 6 months later. Like I don't mind
other thing too, like
those.
The whole fact of like what story could even carry a champion through that long of a title reign as well anymore.
Yeah.
Because I think the only reason we got Roman's title reign for that long was because the Bloodline storyline.
Yeah, the storyline sold it for sure. But like, dude, like go back and look at any of your favorite wrestlers, and minus John Cena's year-long run, like none of them were Jinder Mahal's one title run was longer than almost all of Edge's combined.
Right.
Like it's crazy. Like really go back and look at your favorite times of wrestling and know that over a 3-year period, Stone Cold was like a 4-time champion or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know what I mean? Like if you really go back and look, it is not foreign or weird or unfamiliar to see 3, 4, 5, 6 month title reigns and then you just cycle through the new story and call it a day.
That's where I just feel like it makes it harder to believe people will become world champions is if we have these longer title reigns.
Well, yeah, exactly.
The opportunity has dwindled so hard that you have to really pick and choose who would get it after that.
Well, and I think people like Chad Gable could be a transitional champion. Chad Gable could be a 3-month champion. Someone gets hurt. Chad Gable gets his big win, and then Sami Zayn beats him again, and now he's the champ. Now he gets his world title. For the other 4 to 6 months it took main person to recover from their injury, comes back and wins it. You know what I mean? Like
right.
there are ways to circumvent and have that.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's opportunity means everything at the same time, because I'll use another analogy. If Batista never got injured in 2005-2006 period, he would have had that title past WrestleMania. I think that was initially their plan. He would have gone with that title, but had to lose it. Kurt Angle got that. Rey Mysterio got that. Without that happening, we would have never had Rey Mysterio as a world champion.
Yeah.
In my opinion. I think if Batista was in that spot, we would have never had that. At the same time, in recent history, Cora Jade injured. Was supposed to win the NXT Women's title. Who's there to step in? Roxanne Perez. Like, opportunity needs to be there to present itself. Mm-hmm. And I feel like Cody's was destiny. It was destiny at that point.
It's literally the Mustafa and Kofi situation.
Yeah, for sure. Like it's like if Mustafa Ali doesn't get injured, Kofi Mania doesn't happen. That's just a fact.
It's the domino and
but also, I mean, honestly, the reverse could happen too. If Rey Mysterio doesn't come out at number 30 in the Royal Rumble, WrestleMania doesn't happen, because while the fans weren't necessarily, if Daniel Bryan did come out of the Royal Rumble at 30 like everyone thought he was going to, but then didn't win the Rumble, and
Rey Mysterio would have been on the roster a lot longer too.
Well, not only that, but people wouldn't have been so mad at the system.
Right.
People were mad not that Daniel Bryan got an opportunity and lost. People were mad he didn't even get the opportunity. Yeah. And so it's very situational, and that's the beautiful thing about professional wrestling, is that it will always be situational. Like, if the situations don't arise, then the stories won't happen, whether it's an injury angle or the story writers messing up so bad or, anything else. So really it's how do these people get the opportunities? How well do they seize them? And really the blueprint used to be you get one world title run and it's penciled in for only 2 or 3 months. And if you're super hot, you get it longer. And if you fall flat, then Rey Mysterio, for instance, it just kind of ends pretty quickly.
I think there's another situation right now where we have LA Knight, not as over as he once was, still over. But
He also could just get back over
very
pretty
easily.
quickly, I think.
But I think if they wanted to capitalize that bad on him being a world champion, it would have been when he was as over could be.
Yeah.
Because, like, right now, he's older. He knows he's older. He wanted to get here to do his thing and retire on a high note. Does that mean being a world champion? Hopefully. But, like, with that line of people that we were talking about earlier, where does he actually fit in?
Well, the other thing is, too, how do you have him beat AJ Styles to then AJ Styles becoming the number one contender within a month after he beats him?
Dude, I mean, you can have LA Knight should be towards the front of that because he's right in the middle of that Venn diagram. Wrestling ability, cool on the mic, is over. Boom. That's LA Knight.
Mm-hmm.
There are other people that are also in the Carmelo Hayes is also in the middle of that Venn diagram. You know what I mean? Like there are other people that are there too, but like LA Knight sits comfortably there. And I would argue Sami Zayn sits comfortably there. Just you hierarch them. I think LA Knight should be towards the top of the people who over the next 3 to 5 years gets a decently good world title run. And good doesn't necessarily mean long, but he wins the title, has 3 or 4 really good solid title defenses, and then the cool part is we have faces and heels. This face had a really good title run, and he's protected because he lost it dirty. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, the story behind it also sells and lends credence to why people had shorter title runs.
I think Drew right now is very protected. I think that's great. Finn Balor, when he lost his title.
Some good news about Drew is that he just re-signed.
Yes.
That was another fresh off the press.
Do we know how long? I know he got I know he
it's
signed a new
multi-year,
contract, but
we just
the fact that The Rock announced it makes me think that he got a pretty hefty
good
deal,
one.
though.
I hope so. He deserves it. He's a very hot commodity. So, all right. Well, I mean, I guess the last thing we really need to talk about is the whole Roman Reigns situation, recusing himself from the draft entirely, which I didn't know you could do.
Well, it's Roman.
He's the tribal chief.
Yeah, he could do whatever he wants, but I just didn't think that was an option in the first place. Does that even for a second make you think he'll get drafted to a different show later?
No. He will just show up.
I think when you rescind, that just means you're on the same show. That's what I would think. Doesn't mean you're a free agent, right? Maybe it does. I don't know.
I think he's not active.
Yeah.
He's saying that he's not going to be there.
That's what I'm saying. Like, because imagine, like, dude, like, if it was the way you described, then storyline wise, Adam Pearce is gonna blow up Triple H's office and be like, "So you're telling me I have a 0% chance of drafting Roman Reigns?" Like, you would have to have story around that if it was that version. So
and it wouldn't have
I
made
think
sense
it's just
with the whole. It wouldn't have made sense with Nick Aldis threatening Paul Heyman last week either. With the whole losing isn't the only thing that has consequences. Like, splitting up your tribal chief from his bloodline type thing. Too.
Yeah.
It all caters towards the story that they're building up right now.
Well, the reason why I say that is because Jey Uso is drafted to Raw.
Yeah, it makes me think that we might not get the whole Bloodline Civil War thing unless they do it. Well, because Survivor Series is a Raw versus SmackDown thing, so I mean they very well could.
Exactly. Like you could have that, and then you have the interpromotional pay-per-views like Rumble. You do a Rumble spot.
Because the other thing is too, with the Bloodline being drafted, Jimmy was not a part of it.
Yeah, Jimmy was not a part of it.
Jimmy had not gotten drafted yet, and he also isn't shown up in either of the pools. So, does he just end up showing back up on Raw with Jay at some point,
or with Roman?
That's what I'm saying. So the way they get to this Bloodline Civil War thing, towards Survivor Series, is you have Jimmy eventually come back, but he's on Raw to get away from the others on SmackDown. And then with Roman's inevitable return, the surprise of him just showing up on Raw instead of joining his bloodline back on SmackDown could also play a factor.
I also think we're in a great situation right now where I'm actually going to think about a WWE without Roman Reigns for
Yeah.
a brief instance in time.
A good, what, 3 to 6 months?
Yes, and I think Civil War will be fantastic. It'll have Jacob Fatu in it. If it doesn't, fuck you, I guess, because I want Jacob Fatu in WWE. We got Jacob Fatu.
I mean,
in
it
WWE.
has, by the numbers, it would have to,
Yeah.
because right now the only wrestlers on the bloodline is Solo and Tamatonga. And if you have Roman go back to Raw, you have Roman, Jimmy, and Jay. You need that third.
Right, and Jacob Fatu would absolutely be in that shoe.
Or Nia Jax.
I thought Nia Jax could have been thrown. I actually do
she's
think
on
Nia Jax
SmackDown
could have
now.
been thrown in there in some way.
Dude, I mean, no joke. Like, Nia Jax bit aside, if you want to start adding women to this, you have the Nia Jax, you have Naomi by marriage, you have Snuka, Tamina Snuka. Like,
Tamina.
She retired.
did she retire?
Yes, she announced that.
I think Tamina got injured a total of 587 times in her WWE career. Like,
Yeah, I'm sure. But still, okay, so you take her out, but like there are still plenty of like you could add a women's wrestling element to the bloodline if you really wanted to.
There's a lot of ways they can go.
Ava Raine, technically.
Yeah, exactly. The Rock.
Ava Raine. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Ava Raine.
Even though she has dwindled herself back to a GM role and probably will stay that way. I don't think
maybe
she'll
she
ever
just
wrestle.
didn't. Maybe she just didn't really like the in-ring part. Did she have matches? I never watched.
She had,
She had a
a
few.
singular match that I saw.
A singular match on TV.
A singular match on
Was
TV.
it good?
No.
Was
think
it her
she-
fault? It was bad.
No.
Because I
not
think that's a fair
necessarily.
question to ask.
It
too.
was Chase U against Joe Gacy's Schism.
Yes.
Schism. I think I was wearing the same T-shirt
You were wearing the same
during that first clip.
with her big chin.
No, stop! I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
Yes, you did.
Zach, don't cue the clip where I said that. But like, nah, man. Here comes Schism. No, okay, but like, I don't know, man. Like, at this point, I do not to diss on Roman Reigns, but it'll be interesting to see what the rest of the field does during his absence, including Solo. It'll be interesting to see what his version of dominating the brand is, because right now it's fighting tag teams in the mid
It's
card.
Tomatonga doing everything for him.
What does MTF or MFT stand for?
MFT?
Motherfucking Tonga.
Is that what it is?
I
Because
think it is.
Motherfucking Tama.
they keep referring to him as Solo's MFT. on
Maybe it's
SmackDown.
not. Motherfucking
It's
Tonga.
supposedly a Samoan thing. I can't remember the exact name or wording of it, but there is another thing where someone said it's motherfucking Tama or
I'm
motherfucking
sure.
Tonga.
I'm sure, but like
Oh.
I don't know. They just keep saying
It
it.
sounds for marriage and family therapist.
Yeah,
Nope, it's probably
that's
not
another
that.
thing someone said.
Ugh.
No, but like Tama is relentless, and I like how because he hasn't had the WWE treatment yet. Like
Yeah.
he just flails his freaking body when
Dude,
he's
it's
fighting.
hilarious watching him. It's hilarious watching an AEW star on
Well,
WWE
dude,
TV.
and he's doing it to Kevin Owens, and Kevin
Yeah.
Owens gets to retort back to his indie
Yeah.
style for a second.
Kevin Steen shows up.
Yeah, pretty much. That's what
Yeah.
I like about it. But where do you honestly see the Roman thing? Like when he does return,
Dude, when he returns, one of two things is going to happen. Either he's going to take back over the bloodline, or he's going to start the newer version with Jimmy and Jay, and if we're lucky, Sami Zayn.
my honest hope was that he comes back to SmackDown, and it's just a maniacal thing. It's like Solo and Tama are in the ring. They're welcoming him back, not keeping kayfabe, making it look like Roman doesn't know what they've been doing to Paul the whole time.
Dude, picture this. Let me posit you a scenario, and then we'll jump out of here. Picture it's the first SmackDown after whatever pay-per-views before Survivor Series, and they're starting to set up brand supremacy issues. And Nick Aldis is in the ring, and he starts talking about team captains for Team SmackDown, or starts talking about what teams he wants to face on Raw and whatever. And then he brings out Solo and Tama and Jacob, and they're all in there, and They have their SmackDown t-shirts.
Yo, saying Solo and Tom and then Jacob.
Yeah, exactly. But like, picture them, and they got their SmackDown shirts on because they decided they're gonna play along with a little whatever because it's their show. And then Roman Reigns' music hits, and he comes out in a Bloodline t-shirt, and he starts to join them, and then he rips off his Bloodline shirt,
And it says
and it's
Daddy's Girls on the t-shirt.
Yeah, and it says Daddy's Girl. No, it says Raw. And everyone is super confused. And then the Usos music hits, and they're wearing Raw t-shirts, and then boom, that's how they
And then
start
Roman
fighting.
Reigns starts going like this.
Yeah, and then he starts giving them one of these.
Yeah. Oh, maybe even one of these.
That situation would bring me back to like what Eddie said, like the 2005, 2006 days.
Exactly.
That is a perfect scenario.
What I'm saying is,
Put me in
put
that
me in the writer's room.
Oh,
I
yeah.
promise, if you let me into the writer's room, you will have solid wrestling storylines.
Or just change something that's not broken. Let's try that too.
I'm not broken.
No one told you you were broken, but the NXT
I'm not
thing that they
broken.
did when they did
I'm
the
not
3 quarters.
broken.
Hey, you over there. You
I'm
over
not
there.
broken.
You over there. Shut these lips right here. Not mine.
You want me to shut
yours.
those lips?
No,
I'll
don't
come
shut
over
these
there and
lips.
shut those
Do
lips.
not come over here and shut these lips. No, look. So the SmackDown Raw NXT thing, they did that tri-branded thing for a little bit.
Keep NXT
worked
out of it.
Great. No, it worked great. And
For that year.
And then SmackDown and Raw, they did it the following year. Worked great.
Get out of here. Oh, Eddie, make the noise.
BJ Flair. Oh.
Anyways,
But like, why would you change something that's not broken?
I think NXT should stay out, not because,
That's fine.
not any disrespect to NXT, but I think NXT has finally found the balance between being a third brand but being a developmental, because you had NXT Black and Gold,
Which was a list of full wrestlers.
That was
a
a
list of full
third
wrestlers.
brand. Then it hard transitioned to NXT 2.0, and by the time
That was straight development.
by the time Tommaso Ciampa got out of there, that was a developmental territory, and
Right.
that change was from like 1 month to another. It was so quick. Now this version of NXT feels like it is a
Perfect
good,
hybrid.
perfect balance between a third brand, but it is developmental, which is why I think you should keep it out.
Yeah, I agree. No, I do agree with that. I think we're in a good spot to where just worry about SmackDown and Raw. When you did have Black and Gold, it was a third brand. You took people from all around the world and put them in that one show.
Yeah.
So I think we're at the point where
when this draft is over, you do not hear about NXT.
100%. Yeah.
I do hope at the same time with the NXT we are getting right now, it does seem like we are a lot more on the developmental side of things. Who the hell is the North American champion? I'm also blanking on that.
Oba Femo.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Oba.
he'll be good.
Oh, beep, bop, beep, 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 beep,
Nope.
Bop, boop, boop.
beep,
Zach,
beep,
clip
bop,
that.
boob, and bop.
Zach,
Sorry.
clip that.
All right, that takes us out of here. I'm excited. I don't know about you guys, but I'm excited for the second night of the draft for Monday night.
Very excited.
And I'm excited to come and chat with these guys next week and talk all about it. But until next time, thank you, Zach. Thank you, Eddie. I've been Randy. Thank you guys for watching. Let us know in the comments what you thought about the first night of the draft, more specifically about Roman Reigns. Let us know what you guys think is going to happen between now and the second night of the draft, and we will see you soon.